So good morning and welcome everyone in this webinar organized by the Power for Bio project. This webinar will focus on bio-based materials, and this is the second day of the webinar. For those who were not here on Tuesday, my name is Katalin Kálai, representing the Baj Zoltán Nonprofit Ltd, a research organization in Budapest and in Hungary, and we are partners of the Power for Bio project. Just as a start, I would like to show you the agenda of today. I hope you can see it. We will start with a pre-recorded presentation by Luigi Amati, and he will talk about the financing aspects. And afterwards, there will be another presentation, a pre-recorded presentation about supporting policies for bioeconomy. And afterwards, there will be three company presentations, one from Croatia, one from Italy, and one from Belgium. So I wouldn't take your time too much with this introduction. I will share the video of Mr. Amati. I hope everything will be visible and you can hear it. If not, just please let me know.
And welcome to the Power for Bio webinar series on bio-based material. Today we are going to talk about the equity early stage financial instruments, and in particular how to finance biomaterials and their value chains using European structural and investment funds. My name is Luigi Amati, and I am the presenter for today's session. Before I start with the presentation, I would like to give you a very short information about our company, Meta Group, who we are. We are a unique company in the sense that we provide innovation services that are involving from consulting to managing authorities, national and international governments, the European Commission, regions and cities around the world on innovation ecosystems, down to coaching and mentoring and training and building capacities of startups and research projects that are willing to transform their knowledge into valuable market services and products. And also we have an investment arm for which we are working across Europe, investing in early stage startups. Meta Advisory, which is our consulting unit, has been performing over 700 projects on innovation and entrepreneurship across the world. Meta Academy has been training over 3,000 entrepreneur scientists with different training formats on investment readiness, creativity camps, and the research to market type of training. And Meta Ventures has a unique expertise, as I was mentioning, in implementing, designing and managing public-private financial instruments. Our mission is to make knowledge to market process more effective and profitable. About Meta Investment, which is, let's say, the main part of the company, I'm going to use, if you like, to talk about the financial instruments today. We have been managing early stage financial instruments for over 15 years. We have a portfolio currently of over 80 companies in different sectors, including food and feed, as we will see later on. And we have a unique ability to develop customized solutions for early stage investments. The European Structural and Investment Funds, I believe you are all familiar with this terminology. The European Union, through its cohesion policy, which is one of the main pillars of the European Union policies involving around 1/3 of the total budget of the European Union, is the part of the policies that tries to reinforce cohesion among different regions and different countries, especially those regions which are lagging behind, but more in general to reinforce the creation of jobs and building a socially inclusive society. The two main goals are boosting growth and jobs for a less developed transition and more developed regions, and also to increase European territorial cooperation using programs such as Interreg. There are different types of structural investment funds which are dedicated to the different objectives. You have the European Agriculture Fund for Rural Development, the Cohesion Fund, the European Social Fund, the European Regional Development Fund, and the European Maritime and Fisheries Fund. Overall, these form the ESIF program, which is mainly delivered in the form of grants to recipients or through financial instruments, which are revolving instruments that can be found in the form of loans, guarantees, and equity investments. The grant schemes are not financial instruments because they're not revolving, so they are given, and once they are given, they will not come back. Whereas the financial instruments have the characteristics that they might be given to the target beneficiary, but normally the target beneficiary is expecting to return them through repayment of loans plus interest, ensuring that the guarantees is fulfilled, or by selling shares in the case of equity investments, and through the sales of share, repaying the initial equity investments. They are approved by the European Commission, they are implemented by the member states and by the regions, and the ultimate decision on how to use structural funds lies on the managing authorities in the different member states. If we look a little bit more into the detail of the financial instruments, as said, we have 3/3+1 type of financial instruments, if you like. The first one, it's the loan being an agreement which is obliging the lender to make available money to the borrower for an agreed period of time, and under which the borrower is obliged to repay that amount within agreed time, normally with an interest rate that varies depending on the conditions of the economy, on the forms of the company, and the typology of the loan. The guarantee, instead, it's a written commitment to assume the responsibility for all or part of a third-party debt or obligation, or for the successful performance by that third party of its obligation in an event which triggers such guarantees, such as a loan default. That would be the most common. So the typical guarantee is given to a bank for the potential no repayment of loans of companies to which the bank has actually provided a loan. And finally, the equity, it's a completely different instrument because it is the provision of capital to a firm, but investing directly or indirectly in the return for a total or more often a partial ownership of that firm, where the equity investor may assume some management control, or in any case, some level of control of the firm, and may share the firm profits. The financial returns are depending mostly on the growth and the profitability of the business, and they are earned through dividends and or on the sale of the shares to another investor, so-called exit, or on the listing of the companies on the stock exchange, also called initial public offering. Quasi-equity, finally, it's a mixed type of financial instrument that ranks between equity and debt, has higher risk than senior debt, and has a lower risk than common equity. And quasi-equity investment can be structured as a debt, typically unsecured and subordinated to loans or other type of other type of debts that the company will have. And in some cases, it can also be structured as a convertible loan into equity or as a preferred equity, i.e. an equity having some preferences with respect to the other shareholders and equity owner in the company. And the risk-return profile typically falls between those of debt and equity in a company's capital structure, depending on the specific design of quasi-equity. What does a management authority need to know before starting? The first most important thing is that before allocating money to a financial instrument, the managing authorities have to assess what is needed, why, and by whom. The financial instruments are normally managed either by national or regional operating financial institutions that are selected with transparent tender processes and that will run financial instruments on behalf of the managing authorities. For grants, an ex-assessment of the typology, size, and the target beneficiary of the instrument coming from the structural funds is not required. But for financial instrument, there is a specific need every time a managing authority is willing to implement one to develop such a type of a study. They must comply with the general provisions, which are the common provision regulations, which are governing the overall implementation of the structural funds. These general provision, these common provision regulations have been last time provided in 2013. Since then, there has been some revisions. And now with the future foreseen programming period of 2021-2027, there will be some amendments, some adjustments, some modification, but there will not be a completely new sets of common provisions and regulations. So the current existing ones will be carried forward also into the next programming period. When it comes to the ex-ante assessment, the required content of an ex-ante assessment, it's based on 7 areas. First, there is the need to analyze the market failure. Second, there is the need to assess the value added of the financial instrument, the consistency with other forms of public intervention, and, if needed, state aid implications. There is a need to estimate the additional resources, either public or private, that have to be raised by the financial instruments, and any preferential remuneration to third parties when this is needed. And finally, there is also a need for an identification of lessons learned from similar instruments and ex-ante assessment that were carried out in the past. Proposed investment strategy is also needed, including an assessment of combination with grant support, options for implementation arrangements, and what are the financial products which are forming the financial instrument, and who are the target groups or the final beneficiaries. There is a need for specifying expected results with indicators, both in terms of return on investment, job creation, development objectives, and so on and so forth. And finally, the provisions for allowing the ex-ante assessment to be reviewed and updated in case things are not going according to the forecast. The European Commission has also developed a set of so-called off-the-shelf financial instruments that are mainly having the scope of providing guidelines on how to implement financial instruments. However, when we are using European Structural Investment Fund, the managing authorities can implement financial instruments and related financial products in different forms, always after having performed an ex-ante assessment results. The 3 different options are: 1, to use an already existing or a newly created financial instruments, which are specifically designed to achieve the intended purpose and which respect the applicable union and national rules. Therefore, the managing authorities will be able to make a so-called tailor-made instruments as probably the characteristics of their regions, the characteristics of their firms, and so on and so forth, do need such tailor-made. The financial instruments can also comply with the standard terms and conditions which are laid down by the Commission by the means of some implementing acts which are subordinate, if you like, legislative tools with respect to the Common Provision Regulation, so-called off-the-shelf financial instruments. And finally, managing authorities can also decide to use part of their structural funds which are managed at the regional level, so if you like, decentralized, and put them to inside EU level instruments, which will be then ring-fenced for investments in the specific regions and policy areas covered by the program, in which case this will be referred as joint instruments for which already existing EU instrument level can be used. The off-the-shelf financial instrument, as I mentioned, are providing standard terms and conditions for a set of predefined financial instruments that can be set up and managed by managing authorities. By no means they are to be intended as an obligation for managing authorities, but rather as an opportunity, or as practice have shown in these first years of existence of possibility of off-the-shelf, especially as guidelines to deliver faster and safer financial means. The off-the-shelf financial instruments have been, of course, designed taking into account the experience of over 20 years of implementing structural funds by the European Commission and the Directorate General for Regional Policies and the region. So they contain a lot of knowledge and wisdom that has been coming out of the previous programming periods in which financial instruments have been used. So to sum up, from the moment in which the money is allocated at the EU level, it goes to the countries and regions that will negotiate an agreement with the European Commission. Countries and regions will have to assess the finance gap of the financial instruments, doing an ex-ante assessment, and then they will invest in activities for loans, equity and guarantees, allocating then money to financial institutions and hopefully develop the investment strategy. If this is successful, then these funds will be able to repay the initial investment, and this will be then possible to be spent again to invest in in enterprises and people, which will then grow and repay the funds and to be invested over and over again. From there, the name of revolving instrument, which is given to the financial instrument, also to differentiate them with respect to grants. So now, when we look at the two main forms of financial instruments, what do we have? We have equity, and then we have debt. As we have seen, the guarantee, it's an underwriting of a debt, so to a third party. So conceptually, it's a support, if you like, to the debt financial instruments. When we look, therefore, at the two macro categories of equity and debt, I believe it is important that we understand what are their main targets. In terms of job creation, equity is more focused on long term because we are investing money into a company which will need then to expand and to develop with high risk, but if successful, will be able to create a lot of new jobs. Versus the debt, we are normally investing in an existing company to provide perhaps capital for working capital or running costs, or even to make some innovation of processes and products, but the investment will probably go to grow this company organically. So, or to keep, if you like, this company going, and therefore, the job creation will be lower, and probably the impact will be more in the short term to maintain existing jobs. The second type of differentiation is also the quality versus the quantity. So also, the number of companies that we are investing in and the types of jobs. Normally, when we do have the same amount of money, if we dedicate this money to equity, we are going to dedicate this money to a small number of companies, which will require quite a large amount of capital in equity. and which will be providing high risk and high return. And if successful, they will develop new, normally high quality type of jobs. If you are providing the same amount of money for loans or for guarantees in a debt scheme, we will probably have an investment in lower risk and lower return type of companies, which will be providing in return probably, as I said, the maintenance of existing job or even some new job, but probably the quality in terms of level of skills will be lower than the one provided by the equity financial instrument. It is very important to understand this fundamental difference. While, let's say, everyone is familiar with financial instruments such as a loan or a guarantee, because everyone will have bought its own house and probably had a mortgage and so understand what it is a loan very well. Not many people have been directly involved in investing in companies and getting returns from this company, either through dividends or through the sales of the share of this company. But it is important to understand these two fundamental differences, because they will be impacting substantially different type of companies, and they will have substantially different type of impact on the economy of the regions where these instruments are being used. Let's have a look at what it looks like, these co-investment financial instruments. And I will not go into the details of each and every line of how this should be designed. We know that you need to do the ex-ante assessment, but let me just focus on this slide. And again, if I can raise your curiosity and convey a little bit of the sense why it's so important to develop equity financial instruments, I will have achieved my goal. So let me have you take you through this slide. How does it work? To the top right, you have the program contribution. The program contribution is the money that a managing authority will have allocated to an equity financial instrument after an ex-ante assessment that have shown that in your region there is a need to introduce innovation, to introduce knowledge-intensive companies, to introduce startups, to change the innovation ecosystem of your region. So a certain amount of money will be dedicated to that. Once that is done, the managing authority will issue an open call for selection, and will select, as we said, an independent, commercially driven financial intermediary, with which will have to have also certain participation of its own money into the facility to align interests with the investment. The financial intermediary will also commit to be able to raise some other private money than his own, in order to couple that private money with the public money which is provided by the co-investment facility, which you see to the top right below the program contribution. Typically, on the top left, the private co-investors, who are they? They are companies, they can be business angels, they can be venture capital funds. And then you have the target firms. And depending on the stage of development of the firm, whether it's a seed stage, at startup stage, or at growth stage, the financial intermediary is required to secure a growing amount of private money. So the private money will have to be 10% if the company is at seed stage. So as we said, if the risk is very high, it's pre-commercial, you only have a proof of concept, and you will not be able to have 100% of private money taking that level of risk. The level of private money will go down to will go up to 40% if the company you will be investing is a startup. So it's either at first commercial revenue or pre-commercial revenue, but already with the market test, and therefore the level of risk is lower. And the level of private money will go even higher at 60% if you will be investing in a growth company, which has already a turnover, which maybe has already been successfully sold products in its own territory, and it's going to scale up at national and at international level. So this is how the facility will work. And of course, you can immediately see that this facility can be applied to any sector. This is sector agnostic. So if in the region there will be a clear identification of investing in bioeconomy, then you can have an equity financial instrument that can be fully dedicated on bioeconomy. If bioeconomy is only one of the sectors, you can have an equity financial instrument which is sector agnostic, but which include bioeconomy as one of the possible sectors. in which you will be able to invest. As I said, I'm not going to go into the details. You will find my slides will be available after this presentation, how to set up a proper financial instrument in terms of what the off-the-shelf is saying. Let me repeat only once more that you do not have to use the implementing acts at all costs. Actually, I don't think that many regions have been using it, but a lot of regions have been using the off-the-shelf, not through the detailed implementation using the implementing acts, but more as a guideline. So understanding the overall concept and then making a co-investment fund that were suiting their needs at best. So here there are quite a lot of the things that I told you explained more in detail. Let me go quickly through the different instruments for different regions. Here, another concept I would like to pass on to you is a picture in this slide. This is some of the regions in which as Meta we have experience of managing early stage equity financial instruments. And just to give you, a very quick and dirty number, which will make you understand why you cannot do the same type of financial instruments in every region. If you look at the Emilia-Romagna region, the number of EU patents per million inhabitants every year is 118. And if you take in the same country, Sardinia as a region, you will see that the same statistics goes to 7.16 every year. So clearly, Sardinia and Emilia-Romagna cannot have the same type of equity financial instrument. Potentially, in Sardinia, you will have to have a more gradual approach towards introducing a change and an incremental increase of innovation into the innovation ecosystem. So investing in an innovative SME in Sardinia will not necessarily mean exactly the same as investing in Emilia-Romagna, whereas in Emilia-Romagna, probably you have already a system with companies which are at the state of the art, like Ferrari or Ducati, or all the companies in the packaging industry, the oldest university in the world being the University of Bologna. You can really invest probably in knowledge-intensive companies that can have a global impact in terms of the knowledge and the know-how they generate. So you have to be careful and you have to weight the level of innovation and the level of disruption that you want to bring with the equity financial instrument, depending on the starting level of your region. So here it's a bit more detail about all these funds, but I am aware of time, we're running out. So this is Ingenium Sardinia, this is Ingenium Emilia-Romagna. Here you have more details how they've been structured. The only thing I would like to say here is that these were funds that were made at the very beginning. The one in Sardinia had already a certain size of 34 million euro. The one in Emilia-Romagna was quite small, of 14 million euro. One thing I would say, don't make it too small. I don't have the time to enter into the details, but an equity fund should not be lower than 20, 30 million to allow risk diversification, so to be able to invest in a certain number of companies over a period which typically is of 5 years, and also to allow for having a management fee, which is normally a percentage of the size of the fund, which allows to have a management team which is professional, capable, and stable. So less than 30 million euro, it should not be the case for an equity financial instrument. Let me now address a case study of a high growth, high risk company in the field of biomaterials, so that you can have hopefully a taste of what is it like in investing in equity into a company that can increase its value multiple times, running of course a very high risk, but potentially having a very high reward versus a normal investment as a loan or as a guarantee into an organically growing company with low risk and low returns. The case studies I want to talk to you about is a company we have invested for the first time now more than 5 years ago, called Greenbone Ortho. This is a typical high growth, high risk company founded in 2014 and located in Faenza in Italy, in Emilia Romagna. It is led by a world-class team that has advanced multiple products, including orthopedic products from bench to market. Greenbone is addressing bone fracturing by providing an innovative and easy to use solution inspired to nature that can cure different numbers of bone defects, and has developed a well-protected, patented, innovative and wood-derived bone regenerative implant for extensive bone damage in non-loaded and load-bearing skeletal segments such as long bone non-union fracture, spinal damage, trauma, and cancer-induced bone loss. And due to its structure and chemical composition, the Greenbone has the ideal biomimetic, resorbable, and regenerative properties for bone grafting. The unmet need for which Greenbone is developing a bone substitute, it's huge. There are millions of patients that are undergoing orthopedic surgeries where bone grafts are used to reconstruct different skeleton defects. And all the solutions that are available today, including the bone transplant, which is the gold standard, have a well-known limitation. The Greenbone substitute presents physicians and patients with a new solution that can avoid these surgical and post-operative, especially complication in surgically created bone defects or osseous defects that are resulting from traumatic injury to the bone in the extremities and pelvis. Greenbone, therefore, is expected to enable patients a faster return to normal life, with their own bone completely regenerated and a significant reduction in healthcare and social cost. The ongoing clinical trials that we are conducting are showing very promising results, and the future developments for which we have raised very recently another round of financing will address the treatment of bone infection, bone cancer, spine fusions, and other applications. Let me take you through the journey so that, again, you will better hopefully understand what does it mean to invest in equity and, the kind of needs that an equity financial instrument has in order to be able not just to provide the very first initial investment, but also be able to follow up in a further round of investment. As I was mentioning, the first round was made in 2015, i.e. soon after the company was created, at a pre-money valuation substantially based on the quality of the team and the intellectual property of Greenbone of 3.5 million euro. And we made a total round of investment of 3 million euro made out of a composition of an investment from Meta Ventures and a number of business angels from an angel group called Italian Angels for Growth. The financing was mainly targeting the company setup, the first in vitro study, and the start of the in vitro study. About 2 years later, after successful results of the in vitro study, we raised a second round of financing. The pre-money valuation had already increased at 10 million euro, and we were able to raise another 8.4 million euro from not only ourselves, but also from institutional investors such as Elsin, Invitalia Ventures, and Innogest being institutional investors, to conclude the in vivo study, to enter the clinical phase, to fully buy back the IP, to obtain the CE mark, and to go for an FDA application. And only 3 years later, again, thanks to successful results obtained from the second round of financing, we raised a few months ago a third round fully in the middle of the COVID crisis with a pre-money valuation of 25 million. We raised another round of 10 million, again with some of the previous institutional and angel investors, including ourselves, and also from other new investors, such as the Italian Innovation Fund. So again, we had Elsin, CDP, Venture, Innogest, Italian Angels, Meta Ventures, and even some of the founders and other private and foreign individual investors contributed to this round. And this is now targeting the conclusion of the clinical phase, as we now need more patients in different hospitals, realize the new manufacturing site to host operations, develop and implement a new production line to be validated by first quarter of 2023 for the commercialization, full commercialization in EU and US, and support the development of approval of a product pipeline for new intended use like spine, dental, maxillofacial in the main regulatory areas such as the EU, the US, and MD-SUP. What does it mean if green bone succeed? As you can imagine, this is not just another company, but there will be a new way of bone substitution worldwide. There will be millions of patients treated with the green bone technology, and this will mean a value creation in the order of hundreds of high-quality jobs for the regions, of savings in terms of costs for healthcare and also social costs. And if you look at the investors, the returns will be of hundreds of millions of euros for the investors. Before I conclude, I would really like to go through a few recommendations, and I would like you to have these main takeaways. The first lessons, which I hope I've been able to give you at least, as I said, steer some curiosity. Equity is the suitable financial instruments for knowledge-intensive companies, which are the engine for prosperity and job creation. If you want your regional innovation ecosystem to be thriving, to be a change maker in your region, you have to have knowledge-intensive companies, and to have knowledge-intensive companies, you need to have equity financial instruments. You need to have equity investments. The co-investment equity facility is a suitable instrument to invest in this company. A deal-by-deal approach is a good one because not every region will be so big in a specific sector of the economy to have a dedicated instrument. So most regions do have this equity financial instrument of sector agnostic, and one sector, of course, in this case, could be bioeconomy. Co-investment facility can include grants. Don't forget that certain activities are very expensive, and it would be good to put in parallel to the funds that can be invested in equity into companies, some money, as I said, to build a stronger entrepreneurial mindset, to pay for scouting costs, to prepare entrepreneurs with investment readiness seminars, and so on and so forth. And having a commercially driven fund manager is necessary. If this money is managed and managers which are non-commercially driven, they will never be willing to take the risk of investing in companies that most likely will fail. Normal portfolio in a fund, it's like 20 companies and 10 of them will fail, will either liquidating or bankrupt. 6 or 7 will more or less survive and return some money, and only 2 or 3 will succeed. There is no possibility to do such type of profile of portfolio and risk profile if you're not with a commercially driven fund manager. The size of the fund has to be at least 15-20 million, but recommended is at least 30 to 50 million. And the co-investment instruments are very, very, very useful to start attracting private investors. If you can say in your region, I have a 30 million euro fund, now, people will listen, and, angels, family offices, private investors, companies, no matter what you have in your region, if you say to them, okay, I have this very high risk, high return opportunity, I'm going to put 90% of the money, would you like to try, with 10% and you help me to grow this company? People will be listening to this type of messages. We have been also on tender and reporting, going through, a lot of tenders. And I have to say that, the European Investment Fund has done a great job in trying to develop a culture for, proper, transparent, well-structured tenders and procedures. And I encourage you to look into what the EIF is doing, even if you want to tender on your own and you don't want to rely on the EIF, but still see what they do. For example, now there is a co-investment fund measure in Greece, and if you type business angel co-investment fund Greece, you will see what I mean, in which you have all the details of the terms of reference, how it should be structured, what is the size, what is the target companies, and so on and so forth. So make tenders which are open, transparent, and non-discriminatory, because it's very, 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 very important to attract the best fund manager, to reward them appropriately, and to make sure that this equity financial instrument works well. Assignment in-house, it's quite tricky and doesn't work very well. Finally, be aware that at European level, a few years ago, has been introduced a directive called the Alternative Investment Fund Manager Directive, which is now more and more becoming the standard for fund management companies managing equity financial instruments. And more authorities are requiring that the bidders are already alternative investment fund managers authorized by the financial authorities, or will oblige themselves to become an alternative investment fund manager if they will win the tender. So please take into account also this piece of regulation when preparing your tender. With this, I would like to just give you a final slide on where you can find the most relevant regulation. Regulations are constantly updating. As I said, here are the most important. The general block exemption regulations are the one talking about the 10%, 40%, and 60% amount of private investment in companies in the seed, startup, and growth stage. The common provision regulations are giving you the fundamental rules of the European Structural Investment Fund. In the general block exemption regulation, you will also find the general rule to make a venture capital fund, or an equity financial instrument, as it is called, using the ESIF jargon, state aid free, which if you don't want to deal with seed, startup, growth, you just want to make one venture capital fund, then you need to design it in a way that at least 30% of private money is attracted, no matter if at the level of the fund or if at the level of each and every deal. And finally, here you find the delegated and implementing acts describing the off-the-shelf instrument. Once more, that's not for you to say that you have to use these acts and this is the only way in which you can implement good financial instrument. You can do your own, you can do it tailor-made, but please have a look at them and read these acts, because they represent very good guidelines to develop a good equity financial instruments. And I wish you to be successful in the development of an equity financial instrument in your region, and I wish that will power the bioeconomy regional development, which we all need so much. Thank you very much.
Hello, Katalin. This is Luigi.
Good morning, Luigi.
Hello.
It's
good morning. Just to
yes,
say
sir.
that I'm here to take any question that colleagues would like to ask at this point. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, by the way.
Yes.
And I apologize. I apologize if there were some cuts you might have noticed, but I had to shorten it from over 1 hour of the initial one to about 40 minutes we agreed.
It was very good, and I think it's a very important topic. I hope there are questions. Eva, go ahead.
Okay, my question is, who could be the applicant for this financial support for these funds? If it could be region or somebody of region, or just a business firm?
The funds are in general created by the regions, because the regions are those benefiting from the structural funds, so they have the budget to create financial instruments. And then in the case of equity financial instruments, they are normally managed by a separate, let's say, entity from the region. And this separate entity, it's normally selected through a competitive process launched by the regions. And therefore, once this fund manager is selected by the regional managing authorities, they will be in charge of managing the financial instruments, and applicants to the financial instruments will normally be SMEs.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
I hope I was clear.
Thanks.
Any more questions, maybe? I don't see any more raised hands or questions in the chat. So thank you very much, Luigi, for joining us, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Katalin. And of course, I remain available to all the participants and the partners for Power for Bio. If there are further questions, you can always reach me or Marco, and we will be happy to interact also on a bilateral base with the partners. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye then.
Bye.
Bye. Goodbye.
Now we will continue with the policy issues, and our project partner, Berian Elbersen, I'm sorry, Berian, if I pronounced it the wrong way, from Wageningen Research Institute, prepared a pre-recorded presentation for us. So I will share her presentation. Can I just have a quick confirmation from my colleagues if it is visible?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you. So I will start. Oh, no, sorry, I forgot one thing. You will not hear. Okay, this will be good now.
Good morning. This is a training webinar about policies with a focus on policies for bioeconomy, particularly biomaterials. The content of this presentation is the following. First, I will give an overview of what we understand covers the bio-based economy and what policy instruments are related to that. Examples of that, just to give a flavor. Then I will explain about EU policy instruments supporting biomaterial sector and the link to national and regional policy implementation. Then I will talk about two policy examples in relation to particularly the biomaterial sector, and I will end with conclusions and recommendations. Central in a bioeconomy system is the biomass delivery chain. That starts with the biomass until end products and uses. The end users also provide new biomass, and then the chain starts all over again. So the idea of circularity. Activities in the bioeconomy system also include the wider food and industrial environment. I'll show that. And the enabling environment. And the different activities in the bioeconomy system have outcomes with a socioeconomic environment and with the environmental environment. And these outcomes also influence on parts of the biomass delivery chain again. So there are many loops and feedback links. The wider food industrial environment covers aspects like food and product labeling and promotion, quality requirements and safety requirements, but also cover voluntary certification and agreements between economic sectors. The enabling environment also creates the conditions in which the system functions and covers factors such as transport, research and development, and regulations. At the consumer level, there are factors that influence activities, such as the product environment and the characteristics of the consumers that determine the consumer's relationship to bioproducts. But also how the waste is managed that comes from consumption. The bioeconomy system also has outcomes in the socio-economic and environmental systems, the upper and lower systems. These are actually feedback loops, as I already explained. So they occur between parts of the biomass delivery chain and the outcomes in terms of climate impacts, pollution, but also product, but also the effects of consumption of the bioproducts. So one can imagine that the system that I showed is very complex, and there are many policy instruments that influence on this system. And these policy instruments can, in principle, be classified in 3 types. First, there are regulations. They are enforced through laws. And examples of regulations could be several waste regulations, green procurement rules that prescribe that government organizations have to buy certain green products that comply with a certain quality or green certificates. Another example is product norms and fuel standards, or the requirements and restrictions applied to the use of co-products and residues. But there's also law on product quality requirements and product safety requirements. Then the second category of instruments is economic instruments. So it has to do with support or also fees that are applied, like, for example, waste fees, but also R&D support for process development, demo and scale-up installations, for example. There are many support measures there. There's also support for research through research programs for R&D, particularly for sustainable innovations, soft loan arrangements, and support in knowledge and advice in adapting to a more bio-based, circular, climate and energy efficient business model. And then the last category consists of soft instruments. And these could be voluntary standards, product labels, bioeconomy action plans, roadmaps that are developed at national and regional level, circular economy action plans and roadmaps, and also the smart specialization clusters and platforms. And I will explain much more about that later in this presentation. But also the creation of standards for commodities that industries agree to develop together. Now I move to the next item on the agenda, which is about the EU policy environment and the relationship to national and regional policy implementation. In 2012, the Bioeconomy Action Plan was published, and that was actually the first time that bioeconomy was defined as it is going to be supported in this action plan. Defined bioeconomy as the production of renewable biological resources and their conversion into food, feed, bio-based products and bioenergy. So it includes agriculture, forestry, fisheries, food and pulp, paper production, as well as parts of the chemical, biotechnological and energy industries. And from this action plan, there were three main actions. First was to make investments in research and innovation and skills for developing the bioeconomy. Second, to reinforce policy interaction and stakeholder engagement. And the third was to enhance the markets and competitiveness of the bio-based sector. The concept of circularity was linked and was introduced and linked to bioeconomy in 2013 with the 7th Environmental Action Plan. And circularity was incorporated and and that became clear through the main vision that the EU put central in this action plan. It said in 2050 we live well within the planet's ecological limits, and our prosperity and healthy environments stem from an innovative circular economy where nothing is wasted and where natural resources are managed sustainably and biodiversity is protected, valued and restored in ways that enhance our society's resilience. So the support of ecosystem services. And our low carbon growth has long been decoupled from resource use, setting the pace for a safe and sustainable global society. And based on this vision, in 2015, the Circular Economy Package was introduced, which was actually the basis for the current ambitions regarding bioeconomy and circular economy that were worked out in the most recent plans or recent strategies, which is the 2018 Bioeconomy Strategy, the EU Green Deal was published in 2019, at the end of 2019, and the Circular Economy Action Plan. In my next slides, I will present details on these strategies and plans. First, the 2018 Bioeconomy Strategy. The ambition is to maximize its contribution towards the Paris Agreement, so climate mitigation, and the 2030 Agenda on Sustainable Development Goals. Central is sustainability and circularity, and bioeconomy. And so they're all integrated and seen as supporting each other. Basically, bioeconomy and circularity are seen as an instrument to reach more sustainability. And central is the need to reconcile the competition of different sectors for biomass, and that is also acknowledged. And particularly the question about using biomass for energy and for food, feed, and chemicals and products. 14 measures were launched or announced at that time, but in the meantime it has happened. These are to strengthen and scale up the bio-based sectors, to make investments and markets, to create them and to increase these, to deploy local bioeconomies rapidly across the whole of Europe, and to understand the ecological boundaries of the bioeconomy. At national and regional level, there was also action required from this strategy. The first one was that all member states had to develop their own bioeconomy strategies, and at regional level, research and innovation strategies for smart specialization are stimulated. Now I explain about the Green Deal. What is the Green Deal? The Green Deal is a new growth strategy that was presented by the new European Commission at the end of 2019, which aims to transform the EU into a fair and prosperous society with a modern, resource-efficient and competitive economy, where there are no net emissions of greenhouse gas by 2050, and where economic growth is decoupled from resource use. A couple of elements are very central in this strategy. Well, there will be a new climate law that will also need to be translated in national legislation, and the aim is to create climate neutrality, to decarbonize the energy system, and that's not a surprise because 75% of our greenhouse gas emissions in the EU come from production and use of energy, including the use of energy in the production of products, including bioproducts. It was announced that there will be a carbon pricing instrument introduced throughout the economy, also taking account of the carbon leakage by also putting, of course, carbon pricing on imported products. There's also a zero pollution. Further details in relation to biomaterials. So the Green Deal ambitions have been further worked out in another action plan that was presented in 2020, which is the Circular Economy Action Plan. The title was for a cleaner, more competitive Europe. And main elements in this action plan were actions will be taken or are already taken on the following themes. The first one is to decarbonize and modernize energy-intensive sectors, such as steel, chemicals, cement sectors. Focus on resource-intensive sectors, particularly textiles, plastics, packaging, construction, and I'll explain more about that in the next slide. Also, sustainable product policy legislative initiatives will be taken over the next years. The central aim is to widen the eco-design directive, and now it only applies to energy-related products, but it will be broadened to a very wide range of products to deliver more on circularity, to reach more circularity in the production of all products. Then there will be more action to prevent waste from being created from the start, but also to stimulate circularity in waste use. So waste reduction and recycled content targets will come. There will be an extended producer responsibility for the products produced and consumed. The current waste law will be further modernized, and there will be an EU market for secondary raw materials created. Also an ambition is that there will be a global circular economy alliance, and this involves the possible international agreement on the management of natural resources. And last is to reinforce the monitoring of the circular economy. The monitoring will be improved of the circular economy national plans, national energy and climate action plans, and national measures. particularly in relation, of course, to reaching more greenhouse gas mitigation and circularity. What is the idea between widening the Eco-Design Directive? The idea is that the product durability, reusability, upgradability, and repairability needs to be improved in product production. The presence of hazardous chemicals in products and increasing their energy and resource efficiency needs to be addressed. Increasing also the recycled content in products, I mentioned that before. There will be targets formulated for that, in combination with ensuring the performance and safety of the product. Also more stimulation of remanufacturing and high quality recycling, reducing carbon and environmental footprints in the production of products and the consumption, of course. Restricting single-use and countering premature obsolescence of products. So single-use products consumption and then throwing it away immediately will be reduced as much as possible. A ban on the destruction of unsold durable goods, which is a wide practice at this moment, and incentivize the product as a service or other models where producers keep the ownership of the product or the responsibility for its performance throughout its life cycle. And their life cycle, of course, also includes the end of the life cycle where the product is no longer used. Well, the idea is that the use is that it is recycled again, or well, at least not wasted. And also mobilizing the digitalization of the product information, including solutions such as digital passports, tagging, and watermarks, so that consumers can trace the characteristics of the products in relation to the particularly circular performance. And also the idea of rewarding products based on their different sustainability performance, including by linking high performance levels of incentives. And the last one is to create standard methodologies to assess impacts of products on environment. Yeah, so to avoid greenwashing, but yeah, particularly to monitor properly what happens in the production and the consumption of the product, the use of resources in the production of the product, and to ensure that claims are not false in relation to all these sustainability aspects. I also mentioned already that there will be stronger focus on improving the resource efficiency in resource intensive sectors. For example, textiles. The idea is that strategy is development to boost the market for sustainable and circular textiles, including the market for textile reuse, but also it will support new consumption patterns and business models in this sector. And there will be also a guidance developed on separated collection of textile waste, also already by 2025, which of course needs to be implemented by the member states. Regarding plastics, of course there is already a plastic strategy, but that will be updated. That's the expectation. focusing on increasing the recycled plastic content. And there will also be mandatory requirements on recycled content in relation to packaging, construction materials and vehicles. And more attention will be paid to solving challenges with microplastics and sourcing and use of bio-based plastics, bio-based and biodegradable plastics. In the construction sector, which is also very resource intensive, there will be development of a sustainable built environment strategy that promotes circularity principles throughout the whole life cycle of buildings. And in the packaging sector, there are already many requirements, and there's a law, packaging law, but additional targets will be set up to reduce packaging material further, and to recycle and reuse packaging material, and reinforce mandatory requirements in the packaging sector. Actions were also announced in relation to circularity in industrial production processes. This covers the following aspects. First of all, the Commission will review how to update the Industrial Emissions Directive. There will be an industry-led reporting and certification system to enable the implementation of industrial symbiosis, so more collaboration between industries. And there will also be more support for sustainable and circular bio-based sectors through the implementation of the Bioeconomy Action Plan, of course, as I already presented. But this will be reinforced and reviewed again over the next years. And there will be a promotion of the use of digital technologies for tracking, tracing and mapping of resources. And the promotion and uptake of green technologies throughout the system of solid verification by registering the EU Environmental Technology Verification Scheme. So that's a kind of EU certification. And the aim is also to create a regulatory framework for certification of carbon removals, so that it's standardized, and that carbon removals are also awarded if they comply with the standards. Then how all these initiatives and strategies and implementation of these strategies will be financed. This will be particularly focusing on financing innovation and investments. This will be done through EU funds, like the EU Cohesion Fund, the European Regional Development Fund and the LIFE Programme. And also actions need to be taken to mobilize private financing in support of the transition to more circular economy through, for example, an EU financial instrument, which is the Invest EU. And now I move to presenting the good policy examples. Policy examples that we selected and that are relevant in relation to biomaterials are the smart specialization technology platforms that were developed in Piemonte and also in Bavaria. So in Italy, the focus sectors are in this smart specialization, especially on agriculture industry, including chemistry and research and development. And the purpose was to enable, to create an enabling environment, to foster industry research collaboration, and with a focus on biomaterials and chemicals. And in Bavaria, some of you have already visited Bavaria and obtained a lot of information about this cluster initiative. The focus is on fostering research and collaboration, and this is already a cluster initiative that exists much longer than the Italian example of Piemonte. And what I also want to mention is that there are other cluster, smart specialization cluster examples in Europe. Here I present two, but there are also examples like the Bio-based Delta in the Netherlands, BioVale in the UK, and IAR in France. Just a further characterization of these smart specialization examples. They promote economic transformation, particularly in innovation and investment, and usually in bio-based economy domains. And there is a strong link to EU research and development programs. Smart specialization initiatives also have financing and or are able to access financing on research and development sources like framework programs and Horizon program, PBI program, bio-based innovation program. The Bavaria cluster showed that the smart specialization framework was helpful to get better access to EU national and regional funds. But this cluster was already created before the smart specialization framework was created at EU level. So it was an early initiative in 2006. The Piemonte smart specialization was a direct follow-up of the EU smart specialization policy. And it facilitated access to funding. It was only created in 2018, so it's only a couple of years on its way. And the key European funding source was the European Regional Development Fund. Since 2006, we have the Bavarian Cluster Initiative. A lot of money was invested in it. The government invested the national government, 63 million euro. Another 248 million euro came from federal funds. And 39 million euro was already invested from EU funding. By April 2017, 10,000 events were organized with more than 500,000 participants for this cluster. 1,500 projects were initiated and with almost 10,000 participants collaborating in these projects. And it proved effective because it received many awards. Particularly from the European Cluster Excellence Initiative, but also from national initiatives and other EU-wide awarding initiatives. For the Piemonte technology platform, had the impact between 2018 and spring 2019 was that 9 projects were approved. 2/3 of the approved projects focused on circular economy. 47 million euro was already approved from European funding, and 20 million euro contributed from the European Regional Development Fund. 112 partners are involved in approved projects, which involves 87 companies and 33 research organizations. Why are these good policy examples? Well, so far the cluster initiative in Bavaria proved effective because it led to a tremendous increase in clusters and collaboration projects. I already showed that. The quality was confirmed by several awards. And it clearly supported the marketing and branding of the region and attracted new companies to the region and also international collaborations. And it proved to be a driver to more mature bio-based development stage for the region, created additional income and employment opportunities, particularly, of course, in innovation sectors of the bioeconomy. And for the Piemonte, it can already be claimed that new explorative collaboration projects between research and industry already resulted from this cluster. And this led to new products and technologies developed in Piemonte. The platforms can be seen as arenas where experimentation of new products and technologies take place. So at different levels of technology readiness, both early and late. And these clusters can also be seen as motors for the development of improving the regional competitiveness and creation of jobs, particularly in innovative sectors. Of course, there were also already lessons learned from these initiatives in relation to barriers. It turned out that combining funds from European regional development funds and other funds were difficult because of different rules and procedures. The different state aid rules applicable to industrial and agricultural activities make it made specifically in Piemonte it almost impossible to fund a complete regional value chain with a single fund. Every fund has its own rules. It was challenging to get private funds to secure particularly financial support in the initial stage. Because different sectors have to collaborate together, and that turned out to be difficult, particularly in the beginning. It was a challenge to engage farmers and forestry sectors and small SMEs in the research and development projects. Then there was a lack of training, which was particularly an issue among stakeholders from agriculture and forestry sectors and small SMEs, because these sectors usually do not have the operational, financial, technical and planning capacity to carry on projects with a mid to long-term vision. But there were also several opportunities related to these smart specialization technology platforms. For example, it helped that there was EU regulation and stimulation. It helped that the smart specialization triggered regional political interest in bio-based development, and also by doing that, reaching more sustainability goals and new business opportunities. And often this also helped to translate these ambitions in national and regional strategies. Several research and development funding opportunities became more accessible by setting up a smart specialization cluster. Both EU-wide Horizon program BBI research, but also support from national and regional research programs. So that was about the two good policy examples. And now I'm going to explain what the main conclusions and recommendations are of this study. Well, first of all, the European policies that are mentioned to contribute to bioeconomy development at regional level are especially rural development policies, climate and energy policies, cohesion policies, and like the smart specialization policy, waste management policies, and specific bioeconomy policies. What we also saw is that smart specialization platforms are good examples in terms of numbers of clusters and research and innovation actions realized, but also in terms of amount of money spent on these new research and development developments at regional level. And it also helped that reward systems are in place, which also stimulates a more active participation in smart specialization platforms. The biggest challenges in smart specialization clusters occur in the first phase of the development. And a lack of training and knowledge among crucial stakeholders is also a very important barrier that should be addressed in the beginning. There are also market barriers seen, particularly in relation to securing private funds during the initial stage. Also, the commercialization of new bio-based products is a slow process, and this requires secure policy and financing conditions to minimize the investment risk. And the other aspect regarding highly innovative products or components is that it requires a long and consistent efforts for training, education, and knowledge transfer to entrepreneurs prior to their commercialization. In the bioenergy policy, strong competition between bioenergy and fossil-based alternatives was a barrier, but it was certainly not the only and main barrier overall. Final recommendations are that policy instruments for all stages of maturity are already in place, and it's a matter for national and regional governments to further implement them. There are several of these instruments. Examples are, for example, instruments that mobilize and regulate biomass use, sustainable use, mobilization of the biomass, instruments for waste management, regulation and support instruments to safeguard the environment and prevent environmental impact, financing instruments for particularly pilots for the initial state, loans to help companies to finance bio-based investments, private financing, funding of research and research agenda, strategy for further bioeconomy and circular economy developments. That is really important that these strategies are developed. And also instruments for monitoring progress of bioeconomy and circularity. So if you introduce these instruments, please think of how these instruments can be monitored in relation to their effectiveness. And that is often not in place if we look at several instruments. So this was the final slide of my presentation. If you want to have more details, you can also read the deliverable, deliverable 4.2, giving an overview of suitable regional policies to support the bio-based business models. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for this presentation, Varian. Varian is with us today, so if anyone has question for her, just go ahead. It seems there are no questions. It was a very thorough presentation of the policies, so I think it was very strong, and maybe that's why there are no questions. So thank you, Varian, for your presentation.
Okay.
And
you're welcome.
Thank you. And let's go further for the company presentations. First, we will start with the Croatian company called Bioeconomy. And I would like to ask Filip Miketa to hold his presentation. Filip, are you here?
Hi, Katalin. Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Please don't mind me, but I will turn off the camera because
Okay.
of very, very, very bad connection.
Okay.
And also, if it's possible, if this connection stops, why, I don't know, please let me know so I can. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Gianluca. Okay, can you see it?
Yes.
But I will put it on the.
Yes, in the presenter's mode. Yes.
Just a moment. Ah, here we are.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you. So once again, good morning, everybody. I hope that you are all well and safe. And well, my name is Filip Miketa, and I'm CEO of the Bioeconomy company from Croatia. And first of all, I would like to thank to Katalin for inviting us to give this presentation. Today for you, we prepared a very, let's say, short presentation with an overview of our company, with some R&D activities which we are performing, with project activities and market activities. So let's start, since we don't have too much time. Bioeconomy is a SME manufacturer and research and development enterprise from Croatia. We are a synergy of 20 years of industrial manufacturing experience in the field of plastic and young R&D team with, let's say, strong experience in EU funds and programs with more than 20 projects in our portfolio. Consequently, participation in the project was a very strong base for development and further production of bioplastics. So our essence, we are dedicated to development and production of bio-based, biodegradable and compostable thermoplastic materials, but also film products from these materials used for the production of primary and secondary packaging applications, agro applications, and many more. Also, it's worth mentioning that our team currently have different profiles: chemical engineers, technical engineers, technicians, project managers, public relation and social media manager, and soon PhDs. Just a moment. Okay, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something about Katalin. You hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, sorry. So let me tell you something about our R&D activities. Our activities are focused on in three directions. First, we are doing private R&D projects with companies and RTOs across European Union with many different partners. Also, we are doing internal projects, which is for us currently very important, where we are developing MI family of materials. And also the third direction is our R&D projects under Horizon 2020 program, which are for us really important. We are performing many activities and processes which we are implementing at different TRL technology readiness level from 4 up to 9, and we are covering twin screw extrusion, which where we can do many different techniques: reactive extrusion, compounding, blending, functionalization and compatibilization, grafting, etc. We are also covering cast extrusion, blow extrusion, and co-extrusion. Also, regranulation and mechanical recycling of the plastic waste, welding, sealing, trimming, and rewinding of films, printing, coating, but also what is really important for SME, that we are performing characterization of obtained materials, which includes rheology, physical properties, temperature properties, etc. But also we are making characterization of obtained films, where we do mechanical characterization of films and conditioning of products. Basically, we are covering a really huge role from monomers, oligomers, and biopolymers to final materials, products, and solutions. What is bioplastic? Well, in the last few years, I was surprised, because many people, even from bioeconomy field, don't understand what is bioplastic. Bioplastic are not just one single substance. They comprise of a whole family of materials and ingredients with different properties and for different applications. And currently, as you know, bioplastic accounts for less than 1%, or approximately 1% of the overall plastic market. Also, I don't know, do you know this, but it's really important that every compostable plastic is biodegradable, but every biodegradable plastic is not compostable. And as you can see on this famous square here you can see that there are fossil-based plastic and bio-based plastic, and both can be non-biodegradable and biodegradable. So we are covering the right side of this square. In fact, we are working with bio-based and fossil-based but biodegradable components and materials. Also, it is worth to mention that biodegradability and compostability are let's say, it's pretty complicated when you are not in this, but there are many different certificates for each of plastic and each of products. So you have at the end industrial compost, home compost, biodegradability in soil, also in inland water, but also, which is lately very popular, biodegradability in marine environment. So what we are doing? Well, BioMe already developed first blend, compound, or bioplastic, call it however you want, but it's MI-free, which is starch-based compound, and we are very proud on this, but this is the first bioplastic made at Southeast Europe. We are currently developing second biodegradable and compostable thermoplastic compound, which will be MI6, and which is a PLA-based compound. Our aim is to optimize and to further upscale the production of 3 different bioplastic blends, compounds, which will have 9 different certified variations between them. And this will be based on a wide range of biopolymers, biodegradable polyesters and copolyesters, such as PLA, starch, PAJs, homopolymers and copolymers, PBAT, PCl, PBS, PBSA, PBST, etc. Also using monomers and oligomers, additives, chain extenders, compatibilizers, nucleating agents, fillers, etc. So most important thing is that every blend composition is not biodegradable under every condition or environment, and BioMe will be one of the few companies in EU which can offer different end-of-life options and solutions for each material and product. So our main output is MI family of materials, MI3, MI6, and MI9, which are all bio-based, biodegradable, and compostable materials. The second process which we are covering, and usually the companies which are producing materials, they are only producing materials and selling it. But due to the specific situation and because we are coming from Croatia, it's especially in the beginning, now it's a little bit easier, but it was very hard to sell our materials because companies are using fossil-based materials, traditional polyolefins such as polyethylene, polypropylene, or PET. So it's very hard that they start using your material. It's something what we need to do in the battle, which we need to do in the next few years. That's why we are also covering extrusion process. Well, we're already developed thermoplastic materials, which I mentioned you in a previous slide. We are converting using blow and cast extrusion, mono extrusion and co-extrusion into films. And from these films, we are developing different products. The most important thing here is that we want is that to produce the products which have sense, which are logical, which can biodegrade and which can compost in industrial composting or home composting bins. So these products are agro products such as mulch films, agricultural films, but also waste bags for collection of organic waste fractions from household, etc. Also, there are bags and for single use for fruits and vegetables, but also shopping bags which you can use again after using your shop. You can use it again as a garbage bags or trash bags. Also, as I mentioned before, we are covering this characterization, which is for us really important. Firstly, we characterize raw materials which are coming, then we are characterizing obtained materials and compounds, and afterwards we are making characterization of different obtained films and our products, which those films have to be in chamber with controlled temperature and humidity due to the sensitivity of biopolymer films. Just a moment. So let me tell you something briefly about our project activities. Currently, BioMe is currently participating in 7 active Horizon 2020 projects. As you can see on the right, it's effective, E-Coat, usable packaging, BioNTop, Mandala, Nano2Far, UpPet, and also Uplift, which will start next month. Also, there are 3 Horizon 2020 projects which are under grant agreement preparation, which will start in the next 3 or 4 months. Well, when you see these numbers, it's logical that we had success, because every year in the last 7 years we are submitting more than 20 up to 30 proposals, and currently, shamefully, but currently Horizon 2020 is our only option, because we don't have participation in national funding due to the many reasons which I wouldn't like to discuss now, maybe on some other meeting. So we are full members of Bio-Based Industry Consortium. We are full members since 2017, And yes, we have an opportunity to create policies and funding priorities within bio-based industry, joint undertaking, BBI-GU. We are participating at programming working groups from BITS meetings since 2014, and we have a nice collaboration with well-known RTOs and companies, also universities, etc. So for us, this is really nice experience, good experience, especially if you are coming from East Europe, to introduce and get introduced with many different partners and profiles, which are working similar activities like we. So how it was in a timeline, let's say we created company in 2017, but before I worked in my family company, which is also coming from Croatia, we also had some success in Horizon and other programs and initiatives, but this company didn't want to create materials. They wanted only to be transformers of biomaterials into final products. I really wanted that I start working on the creation of thermoplastics, bio-based and biodegradable thermoplastics. So that's why I created a new company, 2017, and 2018 we had the first project effective. Then 2019 we had a lot of success with some roles in E-Code, Mandala, BioOnTop, and Usable. And in 2020 we started Nano2Far project, also UpWet, and as I previously mentioned you, in 2021 we will start with Uplift and two more projects. In the value chain, the situation is, as you can see, we are covering a lot, but unfortunately for us and bioplastic value chain, especially for flexible packaging, which can degrade in a composting environment, is very, very, very long. And as you can see from biomass, you have different operations. You need to from biomass to obtain mainly sugars as intermediates, and then you have different operations: fermentation, separation, purification, and also further you have synthesis and polymerization in order to obtain basic biopolymers. It's really important to mention that biopolymers, or most of biopolymers, biopolyesters and copolyesters, are not processable alone on conventional equipment. So that's why we need to compound them and to blend them into functional blends, into blends which you can convert into final product. Otherwise, it's not possible to use biopolymers some other way. Actions which we are working are also RIA, demo, and flagships. So we can cover, as I mentioned before, from TRL 4 up to 9, which is really wide range. And let me tell you briefly something about our market activities, our equipment, and 2 certificates. Well, as I mentioned, we are the first company in East and Southeast Europe which started production we started production and manufacturing of bio-based, biodegradable, and compostable thermoplastics. And it's really important to tell that we made this, also we get these certificates, and everything is based on our internal know-how. The main accent is on MI family of materials. Well, we have MI3 currently, which is starch-based compound. It's industrial and home compost. Then MI6 PLA-based compound. It will be only in industrial compost, because as you know, PLA is only industrial compostable, not home compostable. And also we are already now working on a blend MI9, which will be PHA-based compound, which will achieve, hopefully, let's say, biodegradation in soil, but also biodegradation in marine environment. All these mentioned compounds are tailored for flexible and semi-rigid films and packaging for agro sector, agro mulch films and films. And well, what is really important for us, especially for me, that we are working, except these certified compounds, we are providing tailor-made solutions for the regional companies, for the local companies, for example, for many different processes, such as blow molding, injection molding. Also, we made some compounds for 3D printing, etc. So we are not only engaged in the production of flexible materials for flexible films, also for other applications. And just a moment. Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, we finished 2 certification process, which was our first certification process, which was really very hard. And to be honest, I didn't expect so many procedures and so many tests, but in my opinion, it is justified, because after all, we are bringing materials and products which should compost in compostable conditions. And it's not only important will it compost or not, it's important what you are getting afterwards. Are there heavy metals, heavy chemicals? So this process with 2 certification learn us that everything is really important. On this slide, you can see the starting film, how it starts. Then you have the substrate. Then at the end, you have end substrate, where you can see that our films and our products are definitely compostable. As previously mentioned, our certification plan is to make also films which will be biodegradable in soil. This certification is a little bit longer than others, because it lasts for 1 year. We will just now start it, and also biodegradable in marine environment. And what we can do, well, we are boosting our capacities. We are already also always investing. We are investing our own money, our own capital, because we don't have an approach to the ASIF funds, ASIF national funds for R&D. Well, we are investing in new industrial machinery with high production capacities. This is what we need, and yes, we are going to deployment to the new markets, and in further investments in high capacity equipment, which I mentioned before, and further investment in a new laboratory equipment, which is really important. So bioeconomy today for sustainable future tomorrow. I think this is it. If you are passing by in Croatia, but I hope in the next 6 months and 1 year you will be able to, due to the COVID. Please visit us. We are standing fully at your disposal. We are open that we show you our capacities, our company, our whole process, whatever you need. Thank you very much for this. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Thank you very much, Philip, for this presentation. I'm asking the attendees if there are any questions. I don't see any in the chat, but maybe someone would like to ask something. Yes, Laura.
Hi, Katalin, thank you. Thank you very much for that interesting presentation. I'm wondering, in your supply chain, how big is the supply chain on the biomass side? Is your biomass regional or national, or actually just goes farther and you have to bring biomass from other nearby countries?
Okay. Well, first of all, we are not working with the biomass. As you can see on the one slide, I showed you where we are in the value chain. But yes, we are using natural biopolymers, which are partially domestic here from Croatia. Well, this is what I can answer you right now. But in fact, we are not doing fermentation. We are not covering biorefinery process like some other huge European companies which are market leaders. We are not covering this fermentation. We are covering this process after monomers or after polymers, because these polymers and monomers are not convertible on conventional equipment. But yes, we are using domestic, partially domestic biomass, partially domestic biopolymers, natural biopolymers, but also we are taking this raw abroad, for example, from the States, Canada, from the European Union, but also one part from the China, which is really important for us.
And you mentioned also the part of the entry to market and competing with other very established products. How is it going there, since it's a challenge that many other companies also face? How it looks like for you in this moment, and what are the strategies that you are using to win that battle, let's say, and that competition with?
Yes, it's very. I will be very honest with you. It's very hard. It's very hard to compete with the companies which have 1,000 employees, or maybe one company from Germany which have 120,000 employees. We have only 10 employees. We are SME, but we have really nice capacities. Let's say approximately to 2,000 tons a year. Our capacities. But look, it's very hard to compete with them. But what I know from the market is that we have 10% lower prices of our final products, and we are still earning. So for me, this is the most important thing on the market. Do we earn? Yes. Can we supply our buyers? Yes. And what is the price? And if we are much more expensive, then nobody wouldn't buy it from us. But from the market, as I can see, we have a, let's say, similar price. Even we are trying to be 10% below their prices. And most important, the quality of our products is, let's say, we are somewhere like them.
Okay, very interesting. Thank you very much.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you, Laura. There is another question, and I think it will be the last one now, because we are running out of time. Dr. Imre Bicó. We can't hear you. Unfortunately, Dr. Bicó, we don't hear you now.
Now?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, very shortly, because I see that we are behind the schedule, so I don't want to take too much time from you. But I would like to mention to Philip that I am amazed by your presentation, and mostly by the achievements of your small company. And I have a partner who is producing waste bags, I mean plastic foils. Actually, they are producing, their raw material is polyethylene, mostly partly polypropylene, but as in the Hungarian environmental legislation, it was introduced recently this year that from the middle of this year, I mean 21, there will be the government will give some advantages to the producers who are using PLA or other biodegradable plastics. So my partner, this small company, it's also a small company because their productions last roughly 30 tons per month. So it's not a big amount, but perhaps I am going to discuss your production, your achievements. I will study more carefully and deeply your website, what I had a look already on. And I'm going to return to you perhaps with this partner, because in Hungary we are looking for such products, such solutions.
Great.
So congratulations to the achievements of the last years of your company.
Thank you.
I'm going to come back to you next week sometime.
Please, this is very important for us, because after all, 19% of producers of plastic in Europe are SMEs. So, thank you for this. Please give our contact, and I will be pleased to start cooperation with your friend and partner.
Okay, and I have seen that your company is based close to Fiume, so it's on the way to the sea, so it's very good.
We are actually on the sea. We have sea view from our facility. So
okay,
it's really amazing.
So,
yes.
I don't take more time. Thank you for the possibility to listen to your good presentation.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Katalin.
Philip, there was a request in the chat that maybe you can share your email address in the chat if you don't mind, or if you let me go do that.
No problem at all. I will just write now.
Okay, thank you very much. But I think there are no more time for questions for Philip. So let's move to the next presentation, which will, thank you very much, Philip, which will be an Italian company called Mogu. I don't know if I pronounce it well. Gianluca is with us, and he will hold his presentation. Gianluca?
Thank you, Katalin. Hope you can hear me properly.
Yes.
Great. So, well, first of all, my name is Gianluca Bellotti, Head of Innovation at Mogu. Perfect pronunciation, and yep, I'm really glad to be here. It's been a pleasure receiving your invitation, and also to have the chance to see some old friends here connected. So, since I've been requested, this should be a training informative of innovative materials, so I prepared a presentation which is slightly different from the standard company introduction. I hope you will enjoy it. I try to focus on aspects and lessons that we learned from developing an idea to bring it on the market. So let me share with you the screen. I hope you will find it interesting, and of course, if you have questions, just don't be shy. Good. So let's jump straight into the conversation. And let's start from Mogu. What is Mogu about? Well, Mogu is a peculiar company because it is placed somewhere in between a biotech company, because we produced our own sustainable materials made from mycelium fermentation, and a design company, because we use our material to produce products for the interior design sector. And the nature of this positioning of the company is probably the result of the backgrounds of the two co-founders of the company. Stefano Babbini, who is an engineer with entrepreneurial experience, and Maurizio Montati, who's a designer experienced in living materials. Well, they together decided to found Mogu on the strong belief that nature is the greatest engineer, and we should take inspiration from nature in our industrial process. Actually, the vision and the mission of Mogu is to bring novel materials that are sustainable, made from residues of other agro-industrial value chain, turn it into valuable products and delivering it to the everyday life of people. And as you can understand, this is quite ambitious mission, and clearly rooted into the circular economy, but for sure, this requires some innovation and also some good ideas. And actually, this is why we developed our own proprietary technologies based on mycelium fermentation to produce our material. So first of all, what is mycelium? Actually, mycelium is the vegetative body of mushrooms. So what we used to eat are, let me say, the fruit of the mushroom, but what stays in the ground, so let me say the root of the mushroom, are called mycelium. And mycelium has incredible properties in terms of digesting and converting biological materials. And actually, this is really the function that in ecological environment mushrooms have. And we are using a selected strain of mushroom grown in specific protocols to convert residues of other agro-industrial value chain into material. We use different types of raw materials. They can be residues from the textile industry, so the part of the cotton that is not used from the textile industry. But we can also use residues from the field, for example, lignocellulosic biomass. Combining the strains that we selected, the protocols that we have, and this type of raw material, we are capable of producing a material which is that has specific properties. It is light, it is insulating, noise absorbing, shock resistant, and a number of other properties. To give you an idea, here we have a video, hope you can hear it properly, and you can see the white structure that are growing on these wood pieces is actually the mycelium, so the hyphae that are growing and colonizing the material. While they're growing, they're changing the properties of the material, they are connecting all the particles in a unique piece of material that then we process it. So, seems great. We had inspiring vision, great technology, innovative capabilities of turning residues of industries into valuable products. But at the beginning of our story, we were also a startup. And so we had limited resources. We had plenty of doubts related to how the industry works, which is the market demand, the positioning, legislations, really difficult to understand the details of the environment in which we were working. And we faced plenty of challenges from technical point of view, but also from a business point of view. And clearly, we learned this, let me say, from starting from the idea and facing the reality as being the first lesson that we learned in our journey, and is also the first lesson that I would like to share with you, which is when you're talking of innovative business, especially in circular economy, it's not really about ideas, but it's about making ideas happen. That's the real difficult part that we had. Plenty of amazing technologies out there, but then making it into the market is the real challenge, at least for us. And so what we understood is that if you have an innovative material, clearly you have to make sure that it works, it is really sustainable, and that would be a lot to talk about it, but we are short on time, so I will not get deeper into it. Clearly, it must be economically competitive. Being sustainable doesn't make it interesting by itself from the market, especially if it costs more than the competitors, and also that you can produce at scale your material. Larger business cannot be sustained with small amount of material. Well, during our development process, we checked all this point and we said, okay, we made all of that, we are ready to go into the market. And then we realized that this is only, let me say, the easy part of the story, because then you also have to be sure that your materials, in addition to all the other elements that I commented before, must have an application. Often it happens to me to hear about platform chemicals that can be amazing because they can do plenty of things. They can be used in a lot of process, but nobody really knows how to use them. Because for sure, if it is a novel material, different process have to be developed then to use it. And you must be sure also that there is a known application for your material. In addition to that, you must deeply understand the need of your customer. It's not just producing a material which works and can be used, but what really needs the customer. And if you are in a B2B business, which are the needs of the customer of your customer. We will see later on how this has been important for us, for example. And you must understand how the supply chain works. From who are you going to buy your raw material to who are you going to sell your final products. This is and how these elements of the value chain works together. So also how you are going to sell your product is important. Well, we made our homeworks and it took a little bit of time for us to make, let me say, complete the puzzle of all these elements, but finally we have been capable of finding the proper product and positioning in the market, and we produced our first commercial product, which is a line of acoustic panels for interior comfort. We developed different types of material, different types of products. You can see different shapes, different texture. They are modular, so they can be composed in different ways, also obtaining different patterns on the wall. And they have also specific haptic feeling. They are really velvety surface, so it's really unique experience to touching them, looking at them, being in an environment with them. Clearly, as we said before, they also have to work. And so we deeply characterized our material, and to do so, we need to understand how the industry evaluates your product. And so, as you can see in this technical sheet, you can find all the standards tests that we had to perform to really characterize our material and explain, communicate our value to the market. Among all these elements, there is one in particular which is very important, which is the fire resistance and the result that we obtain in this characterization. To be honest, at the beginning we were not thinking about it because it's not mandatory for commercializing an acoustic panel to comply with certain fire reaction standard. And so, okay, we had our product and, well, we were thinking to other characteristics. But then we realized that it's not our need, but it's the need of our customer that the acoustic panel had a certain level in fire resistance. Because when you try to sell your product to public bodies, like for example, museum or schools or other type of institutions, they, for internal policy, must comply with certain requisites. Among them, there is the fire resistance. And so we had to re-engineer our initial product to comply with that level of performance, which is relatively high. To give you an idea, fire resistance is measured in classes from A to E. And so for an organic product being class B means high performance, because these technical aspects had a direct impact on our business model and our business development. We also analyzed the acoustic performance of our panels. We found that they are quite efficient in the range of voice, human speech, and this makes them quite useful, quite suitable, for example, for offices or theater, well, places where people talk. And this has been the first product that we launched on the market. In addition to our lines of acoustic panels, we also developed our second commercial line of products, which is Mogu Floor. These products originate from a European project, SME instrument phase 2, that we have been awarded and helped us in developing this product, which is a resilient flooring. So it's made of modular tiles made of our mycelium product, our mycelium material, of course, coupled with a bioresin on top, making it actually slightly higher than 90% bio-based. Actually, the formulation of this, the design of this product has been the result of combining the ambition to make a bio-based product with the need of delivering certain performances. Clearly, flooring applications are demanding applications because once you install your floor, you walk on it, you put chairs, tables, and the floor has to stay there for 10 years without getting ruined by cleaning agents and so on. And so we get into a deep designing phase, and we came up with this solution, which is made of a core 8mm tile made of our mycelium material that you have seen before, coupled with a biopolyurethane layer of 1mm on top, and finished with a top coat that provides additional chemical resistance and a moisture barrier on the bottom, since you're going to put it on the floor. This product is also certified with the Blue Angel label for low emission. This is quite important actually, because as I just described, the design of the product has been elaborated thinking to the needs of the customer of our customer, because we don't sell this product directly to the end user. And the blue label, so the certification has been achieved thinking to our direct customer, which is building companies, for example. Because if they can sell a project, a building, which has green certification, like the one that you see here, they can sell it with a higher price because it has higher value. So again, in the designing of our circular and sustainable products, understanding the needs of our customer and the customer of our customer in this case has been the real challenge. Just spending a couple of words more on the polyurethane resin that I commented. It is actually one of the highest possible content in bio-based material for this type of chemical, because it's made of polyol obtained from vegetable origin. It is made of bio-based isocyanate. This is not fully bio-based, cannot be fully bio-based, but it's 70% bio-based. And then we put into this resin a filler which is made of, again, residues of the agro industries, like, for example, shells of hazelnut, coffee grounds, algae, and so on. And using these different types of filler, we have been capable of obtaining a different palette of colors and texture that you can see here. And the resin is actually by itself is transparent. And so what you see here is really the color and the texture provided just from the biomass that we put into this resin. And as I said, the final result, we obtain a material which is more than 90%, a product which is more than 90% bio-based, even if it contains polyurethane. So far, we talk about the commercial products, but we are also developing additional material for different sectors, which are not yet commercial ready, but I would like to quickly talk about it because I believe it is interesting. And it is, well, we call it mycelium leather. Actually, it is not leather, and we are not fully satisfied of this definition, but it helps us in understanding what we are talking about. This type of material is made only of mycelium biomass, so this is not a composite material. It's produced using fungal fermentation, but using a different protocols. And so the material that we obtain is different. It's a flexible material that is produced in layer, and that can be used, for example, for fashion or other application. It has several advantages in comparison with other material used in this sector. For example, of course, this is sustainable and circular. This is our core value. Everything that we do must be sustainable and circular. Again, as a unique touch and feel, very quick process to grow it. We can produce it in virtually any size and shape that you want. It can be engineered, and it is also a scalable process and cost competitive. As we said before, again, thinking to our developments, the lesson that I would like to, the experience that I would like to share with you is that we are focusing on a certain part of the development of this material, which is the production of the material itself, but we are working together with a famous fashion brand because we want to be sure that when our material will be ready, it will meet all the needs and requirements of our customer. We cannot think to produce something close in our lab, and then once we finish, going out there and sell it to somebody, because most likely we have not involved the person that we will buy it, and so there will be something that will be missing from our product. But as I said, this is still an ongoing story, so I hope that I will have the chance in the future to let you know if our approach has been the proper one. And well, I think this is it for this presentation. Thanks for your attention. I hope it has been interesting and that, well, it can be somehow useful for you.
Thank you very much, Gianluca. For me, it was extremely interesting and very inspiring. And it's really a different approach of biomaterials than what we heard from Philip. So that's why I like this comparison. That's why I like that you come after Philip. So it was very nice. I didn't see any question in the chat, but maybe someone wants to ask something directly from you. Miklos, go ahead.
Yep, thank you. It was really an amazing presentation, really interesting. I'm representing Pilsen-Nagy Ltd, which is the largest oyster mushroom producer in Central Europe. So probably we can discuss and discover cooperation options. So I wrote down your email address from your presentation. I will be in touch with you and let's discuss in details. Thank you again.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very much, Miklos. Maybe someone else? You have some nice feedback in the chat, Gianluca.
Okay.
I don't see any more hands raised, so thank you very much, Gianluca.
Thanks to you.
And let's move further to the last presentation. It's another approach in biomaterials, a company called Exia in Belgium. And I would like to ask Jan Palmers if he is with us. I hope he is, to have his presentation. Jan, are you here?
Hello there.
Hello.
Okay. Do you hear me?
Yes, and now I can see you as well.
Okay, good, fine. Well, I don't know if that's fine. Thank you for the previous speakers. It was very interesting how they handled their startup and get into the market, as well as the products are very interesting. Especially Gianluca, I think we need to sit together because we can combine our activities. The screen. Is that working?
Yes, we can see it. Yes.
I have a notion that I have a bad. I don't know what you're seeing.
Now we see your desktop. I don't think that's what you wanted.
No,
And very small. Yes, now it's much better. Maybe you can go to the presenters mode, and
I will go.
that would be just perfect.
So, thank you for the opportunity to present our company. We are a startup. The name is EXI. EXI is standing for Expert in Healthy Houses. Myself, I am Jan Palmaers and I am the CEO of the company. First of all, I want to start with a short introduction of EXI. We are a very young startup established in 2019. We're located in Flanders.
Jan, are you here with us?
Sorry for that. Hello?
Hello?
Yes.
Oh, you are back. Good. You disappeared for a moment.
Am I still there?
Yes, yes, but we don't see your presentation.
You don't see it?
No. We can see you, but not the presentation.
A little bit stress. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yes.
You still see it?
Yes.
Okay, so I start over. My name is Jan Palmaers. I'm CEO of EXI. EXI stands for Expert in Healthy Houses. A little bit the history of our company. We started in 2019, so we are a very young startup. We are located in Flanders in Belgium. And our vision is to equip every building with ecological and sustainable insulation material. Our core activity, our core business is the production of this material. And we have two main products based on hemp and straw mix. And our ambition is, of course, being present with our product all over the world, being the market leader in the production of Canada Dry and EXI fibers. And how we are trying to do that is by our production procedure locally. Go to the next slide. So this is the end result of the hempcrete product, which is a combination of lime and hemp. And this is our straw mix, which are used as insulation material. As the next slide, it is the start of a company movie. It is speaking in Dutch, which will be difficult to understand for most of the attendees, but it's subtitled by English. So good luck. I hope it will work.
We can't hear the sound, Jan.
Hello?
We don't hear the sound.
Ah, sorry. Okay. That was again.
Als je met natuurlijke materialen werkt, dan eigenlijk is dat een beetje als een teken of een pub die aantrekt. Dat is een gebouw die zegt welkom, kom binnen en zet u, want dit is hier echt fantastisch om te horen. We zijn eigenlijk met actie gestart omdat we een alternatief willen bieden voor de isolatiematerialen die vandaag op de markt zijn. Als je met natuurlijke materialen werkt, dan eigenlijk is dat een beetje als een teken of een pul die aantrekt. Dat is een gebouw die zegt welkom, kom binnen en zet u, want dit is hier echt fantastisch om te horen. We zijn eigenlijk met actie gestart omdat we een alternatief willen bieden voor de isolatiematerialen die vandaag op de markt zijn. Wij zijn een producent van natuurlijke isolatiematerialen op basis van enerzijds hennep en anderzijds als stro als basis. Bij kalkhennep gaan we de kern van de stengel van de hennep die gaan wij mengen met kalk en water. En wij hebben een uniek procedé om dat op een heel korte tijd gaan te mengen. Voor strovlokken hebben we het systeem enorm vereenvoudigd. Dus we hebben het stro heel fijn gaan malen en daardoor heeft het eigenlijk een betere isolatiewaarde. En we mengen het ook met een natuurlijk brandweerend middel, zodat het ook heel veilig is in gebruik. En dat je ook een woning hebt die volledig brandveilig kan gebouwd worden. We hebben bijvoorbeeld het fantastisch project mogen leveren in de Gennedijk. Een heel fantastisch schone woning die eigenlijk een mansardedak, een heel groot dak gecreëerd geweest, volledig met ons materiaal geïsoleerd, nieuwbouw. Als je in de zomer in zo'n woning gaat toekomen, dan precies zijn dat je in het zuiden van Frankrijk in een oud woning gaat terechtkomen. Zo'n oud huis, kom binnen, dat is een aangenaam comfort. Het is altijd lekker fris, nooit te warm, zonder gebruik te maken van energie. En dat comfort krijg je een heel jaar door in een gebouw zoals wij het kunnen aanbieden. Maar het is ook goed voor het klimaat in het algemeen. We hebben een natuurlijk materiaal die CO2 vastlegt en die zelfs tijdens het gebruik van het materiaal verder CO2 blijft capteren. Dus dat is een proces dat niet echt gaat stoppen. We hebben een fantastisch project ook in Kampen uit mogen producten leveren. En daar kunnen we heel mooi laten zien. Het product zit onder andere uit de kalkhennep in de vloerisolatie. Niet meer zichtbaar natuurlijk. In de wanden is het heel mooi om te zien dat je zegt, ja, dat is een oud gebouw, dikke muren, vochtig. En daar hebben wij ons isolatiemateriaal kunnen voor laten plaatsen. En dat is heel snel gebeurd, heel strak afgewerkt in een mooie natuurlijke omgeving. Dat is fantastisch. Ja, dat is een heel mooi product geworden. Ja. Het is zo dat ons product niet het goedkoopste is in eerste instantie, maar het totaalconcept zijn we zeker heel interessant omdat we in een renovatie bijvoorbeeld heel veel sneller en veel eenvoudiger te werk kunnen gaan. Dus als je zou isoleren in een renovatie met ons producten, ga je in enkele dagen je renovatie erdoor gejaagd hebben, enkel nog een afpleistering en klaar. Dus qua tijdswinst is die mens en weet dat de tijd 60% van de kost van een gebouw is. Als we morgen gaan samenwerken met een distributeur, groothandels die met ons willen samenwerken of grotere aannemers, dan gaan wij samen kijken naar welke toepassing dat zij dat kunnen gaan gebruiken. De volgende stap is dat wij onze producten duidelijk in de winkel gaan brengen met displays. Ons materiaal is daar aanwezig. De klant kan de verschillende isolatiematerialen gaan afhalen, zowel voor particulier, maar zeker ook de aannemer die met dit eigenlijk aan de slag kan gaan. Dus ben je klaar om samen met Extier een gezonde levensomgeving te creëren? Contacteer ons en we komen heel graag bij jou langs.
Hello.
Hello. We can see you, we can hear you.
Okay. I hope the movie was clear for everybody to listen?
Yes.
Okay. So what is the product itself? The brand name of the hemp lime product is Cannot Dry, which is based on hemp together with lime. This is a production procedure we have been developing and which we are allowing to spread all over the world by licensing the production procedure. So that means that we are not producing every product within Belgium and transported to the rest of the world. No, because that won't be efficient and CO2 friendly. And that's why we are producing locally. We will set up together with local farms the hemp cultivation, and from that point we harvest the product and make our insulation material together. Okay. I have a problem with the slides. Okay. So what is the advantage of hempcrete, hemp lime? It's a very ecological product because it's used, the part of the plant which is used of the hemp is not the fibers which is used for the textile industry, but we are using the herds, which is the inside of the plant, which is considered as a waste product at the moment, but we make it as a commercial product by using it as for the insulation material. It's a very friendly plant. Even during his growth, hemp excels at the absorption of CO2. The plant absorbs more CO2 than it emits during its cultivation and the production process, which is a very huge benefit. And while it has been installed within the walls, within the house, it still absorbs CO2. Hemp lime itself, it's an excellent thermal insulator, and it's also a very good moisture regulator within the environment of a house. It can absorb 4 times its capacity on water, and it can release also the water depending the circumstances of the humidity within the environment. It's also a very good acoustic insulator, which is well, something I want to discuss with Gianluca, which has been interesting in his presentation. Like I said before, it is a very good moisture regulator as an insulation material, and it's a 100% natural product. So there are no additives, no chemicals used within the insulation material. How is it made?
Jan, I'm sorry, you can see your 5th slide still. The slides have stopped.
Slide has stopped. Do you see it now? Hello?
Oh, yes, we can see it, yes.
So what actually is the Canada Dry mix? It's a combination of hemp, so the herds of the hemp. It's additive of hydride lime. The lime is making the hemp hardening by absorbing the carbon dioxide from the environment. And to addition to that, we have our own mixture, which is the accelerator to harden the insulation material by absorbing also the CO2 from the environment. And we use a little bit of water in order to accelerate the process, which results actually in the end product, Canada Dry. See the new slide?
Yes.
Okay. This is a little visualization of how it's implemented in a construction. We first have the wall, then we put some wooden balks against it. Then, which is very important, we use a damp open finishing plate, and between the wall and the finishing plate the mix is placed. It can be blown or put manually, and then after everything has been installed, you can finish the internal wall by paint or any other material. What is the difference with the traditional wet hemp lime production is that we, thanks to our XE binder, we have accelerated the harden process. So that means that normally you need about 2 hours of construction time. We can reduce this time within 30 minutes. We need a lot less amount of lime compared with the traditional wet hemp lime manufacturing. The use of water is also less compared with the traditional wet hemp lime industry. And the most important is that the drying time after installing the product into the construction, it only requires 1 hour instead of 3 months. So the production cost and capex are it's also less compared with the traditional market. One of the USPs of the product is that it has a very long phase shift. What is the phase shift? It is the time that the heat is transporting through the insulation material. So that means, for example, on a hot day, when the sun is shining continuously on a house, it will enter the house, if your house is insulated by polystyrene material, within 1.8 hours. If it has been insulated by hempcrete, it requires 15.7 hours before the heat is entering your house. So this is a huge advantage compared with the traditional insulation materials, which also has a consequence that you don't have to put or foreseen your houses with air conditioning systems, for example. I'll go without that. This is well, more technical visualization how the product has been implemented into the construction walls. It can be used as for in the walls, as for the roof, and as well as for in the floor applications. Certifications are very important, like has been explained in previous presentations. It's all about having the right certificates in order to get into the market. These are some examples of recent projects we have. And this is a nice project we have together with architecture office that is foreseeing or building temporary schools, which can be used in zones or areas all over the world where there has been natural or earthquake zones, for example. They can easily set up these stand-up schools, and they are using our insulation material. Thank you for your attention, and if there are further questions, and sorry for my very fast and unclear presentation. If there are any questions, I open to answer them.
It wasn't unclear for sure.
Oh.
It was clear. Thank you very much, Jan. And I really like the last part, how you use your technique for the help of people. So if there are any questions, I don't see raised hands. Okay, as I can see, there are no questions at the moment. Thank you very much, Jan.
Pleasure.
Good luck for your further work.
Thank you very much.
So I think my only role today is just to close the webinar. I would like to say thank you for all your presenters and all for you for being us today here in this webinar. I'm sorry for being a bit late, but I think it's worth listening to the whole webinar. So thank you very much, and we will share the recordings via the Power for Bio website. And if you have any questions, requests, you would like to get in touch with any of the presenters, just write us and we will help you in that. So thank you very much, and we wish you a nice afternoon and a nice weekend. Goodbye.